Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Come Cloud with Us. My name is Abdulkazi, and I have my co-host Chris. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you, sir. How are you?
Good. And we have a very special guest today, and I actually want to thank her immensely because at the last minute, one of our speakers had a family emergency. He had to pull out, but and so really thankful to you, Lindsay, for coming on and the last minute, and uh, so I appreciate that. And talking about that, let's talk about. I see like cat. You're a cat mom, so to kind of talk about that, and then you're an MVP and MCT. So what that even means from people who don't know, and I guess I'll let you do your introductions.
Yeah, sure. I'm Lindsay Shelton, and the most important fact about me is I am a cat enthusiast. Should have probably put that first. Um, and then I have two beautiful babies, Charlie and Trixie. There's a good chance they might pop up during this, so stay tuned. Because we don't have boundaries in this family. They just are going to do whatever they want to do. So um, I am a Microsoft MVP. So I'm just muting my phone because I forgot to do that. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the business applications category. So basically Power Platform. And basically what that means is I volunteer my time to do things like this and try to help educate the community and help the community and just be a positive guiding force of the community with Microsoft products and be an evangelist and then also take feedback. So next week, I'm really excited to be going to my first MVP summit at the mothership in Seattle. So I have some feedback from my employers that I'll be bringing back to the product team, and we'll see how they receive that feedback. I'm sure they'll be thrilled to hear it. And then I'm also an MCT, which is Microsoft Certified Trainer. And I mostly got that because this is my second career. I spent my first 10 years as a middle school teacher. So I was a middle school English teacher for 6 years and transitioned into teaching engineering and intro to tech. And then ended up it's a long story involving my cousin's future ex-wife's best friend's daughter's adoption party.
Mm,
And then I became a tech consultant.
that's
So there's there's a little more story to it, but that's the beginning and the end of the story is how that ended up. And now I currently work for a medical nonprofit, medical research nonprofit in the Kansas City metro area.
amazing. That's great. And talk to us about, you mentioned Power Platform. So for the people who don't know, what does that mean? Like, I know we have Microsoft has so many different products. So from a Power Platform, what kind of typical use case looks like?
I would say, well, so I actually have a slide. I'll just pop ahead. You keep jumping ahead on my slides because I have. Oh, look, here's my intro slide. Ta-da! And oh, look, what is the Power Platform? So it's like you've seen the deck already, and I didn't send it to you. But basically, this graphic is outdated because I forgot to update it, but Microsoft likes to move things around and change the names of things and all of that good stuff. But at its core, it's a group of low code programs that do a wide variety of things for your organization. So like Power BI, that's sort of been pulled into the Fabric family now. Power Virtual Agents is now Copilot Studio, and I'm not entirely sure if it still lives in the Power Platform family, but that's like a chatbot low code solution. And then the big three that are still definitely in Power Platform, maybe I missed an email that went out 5 minutes ago and they're not, but as of 10 minutes ago, Power Apps, which is just low code building applications for mobile and web. Power Automate, which is low code, no code flows, workflows for automating things. And then Power Pages, which I don't have much experience with, but it's building intranet, or not, it's external facing web pages. So intranet's SharePoint, PowerPoint. Power Pages is external facing websites.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, I guess we'll let you continue your presentation then.
Oh, and a cat is already sneaking up on me. There we go. All right. Well, we'll see if he pops up here. That will be Charlie. Yeah, so that's what the Power Platform is. And basically, if your organization is doing anything with the Power Platform, most specifically Power Apps and Power Automate, then this is a session for you. That this is going to be really helpful for you, and I'll tell you why. So, and let me go back a slide and preface this with, I am not a Center of Excellence expert. I am not a governance expert. What this session is meant to be is, hey, this is someone who realized they needed this and had to figure it out totally on their own how to do this with the help of community resources that people like other MVPs have put out there. But I was just kind of swimming around figuring it out on my own. So this is meant to be my organization's journey into how to get started, but it's also going to show you how you can get the basics started. So really with a step-by-step how-to. So I just wanted to preface with that little disclaimer there. The other disclaimer I want to give you before I go into my little narrative is they did mention at the beginning that this was a little last minute, which I'm totally fine with. With my experience as a teacher, I'm used to just making things up on the fly. But I didn't get a chance to update everything, which was my original plan. So some of these slides might look, some of the images might be a little out of date. I tried to update what I could, but this will get you 95% of the way there. So just you've been disclaimered now. So what happened at my organization is back in September of 2022, I got the opportunity to go to the inaugural Microsoft Power Platform conference, which was really exciting to me. I really loved Microsoft Power Automate. I was getting into Microsoft Power Apps, and I was just so excited. And I went back and to my organization, and I was so energized and so ready. I'm like, we're going to get everyone using Power Platform, and we're going to low code the heck out of this place, and it's going to be so awesome. Whoa. And so this is obviously a picture of me returning from Microsoft Power Platform conference. And then flash forward a little bit to October of 2022, when I realized the current state of our Power Platform governance, which was that there was none. So by default, there's no governance for Power Platform. Anyone can make any environment they want, any flow they want, any app they want, with any kind of connector they want, sending out any kind of information they want, and there's no controls over it. And we have a great group of system admins in my organization who just didn't really even think about Power Platform or know about Power Platform. So that made me realize, okay, before I get to go into rah cheerleader mode, before you have adoption, you must have governance. And you're going to hear that word so many times, governance, that you're going to just start picturing this every time I say it. And I am a millennial, so I'm sorry, there's going to be a few millennial memes in here. But yeah, you're going to hear a lot about governance. Now, this is not a session all about governance. There are great sessions all about governance, and I wish that was one of them, but I don't have 24 hours. I have 1 hour. So I do want to show you, I have some great governance resources that I did want to share with you, because we just don't have time to get into it all. Microsoft Learn, for example, has some great resources, like it gives you some ideas for environment strategies. And then, you can build on that, and it gives you some ideas for adoption methodologies. And two bloggers who I really enjoy for their governance resources are Michael Roth and Matt Devaney. I've actually done a session with Michael Roth, so I'm especially partial to him. And really just the basics you need to know for governance when you're doing your research, which I do recommend going out and doing that research with these, hopefully, as some good starting points for you. Look at environment strategies, DLP or data loss prevention policies, and security roles. Those are kind of, as I look at it, 3 of the 4 tenets of Power Platform governance. The 4th tenet is what we are going to focus on today, which is the COE starter kit. And just to give you a little, because we do talk about, I'm going to talk about environments a little bit. I do want to, and just as an aside, on my link tree, which we will have on the last slide, all of these links are on my link tree. So you don't have to try and, I don't know, write down all these URLs or take a screenshot and then type them all out. I've got all the links for you. So, Charlie, just come here. So, hold please. Someone needs attention. This is Charlie. All right. So when I'm speaking about environments, what I'm talking about, if you've never seen this on Power Automate, make.powerautomate.com, in the upper right-hand corner near where you've got your gear and your profile picture and all that, it'll say environments, and then it'll say for you probably the name of your organization default environment. I don't remember the exact wording because I changed mine a while ago. You can just see from here, I click that drop down. We have 7 environments in my organization. And this was just the environment strategy I chose to use. So it's by no means the only way to do environments. It's just one option for the environments. So personal productivity, that's one pretty common recommendation, is you take your default environment and you rename it personal productivity to communicate to your makers. This is a place for you to make flows that you yourself are using for your own purposes. But this is not a place for things that are meant to be productionalized, that things that the whole organization needs to rely on. You can see I have a COE environment and a dev COE environment. So I'll get back to that, but that's why I'm wanted to show you this environment screen. And then I have development, production, and test. I'm trying to do ALM for myself, really, more than anything, with my environments. And then I have a maker space for my makers who, I just have a little more relaxed DLP policies in there that if for my makers who have done some training with me, they can get away with a little more than they can in just the default personal productivity environment. So that's not what we're talking about, though, environments. We're talking about the center of excellence. And when people kept talking about a center of excellence, for one, we are talking about the center of excellence starter kit. Their center of excellence is a business term. It's a whole other thing, which I didn't even know. This is a specific set of tools that Microsoft has put out, and you can install it in Power Platform. And what's really cool about it is it's tools built by Power Platform. So it's a group of Power Apps and Power Automate flows that help you effectively do a lot of things. It helps you do things like set up your DLP permissions more easily, or see the impact of, if I make a change to my DLP policy, what impact is that going to have on the existing apps and flows? You can set app and flow permissions on every app or flow in your tenant. Doesn't matter what the environment is. You get extended monitoring and visibility of your makers and what they are doing in your tenant. So it helps you, be a fun kind of big brother, but helps you be big brother. It helps you do what you need to do to administer and properly govern the Power Platform. Plus, this is not what I personally do because we just don't have the adoption to justify it. You can extend the COE even further. They have governance components where you can request that makers justify their business use cases. You could put apps in quarantine. You can send inactivity notifications. There are nurture components where you can send out surveys. There's training in a day templates. There's newsletter capabilities for, sending out newsletters about Power Platform in your org. There are theming components, which is really cool if you've got a brand design for your org. You can develop a custom theme in your org for the apps that are being built. And there's also application lifecycle management components for DevOps. I don't have these installed. Like I said, I don't have the need for them at this point, but you can install all of these if you want. You can install just one of them if you want, or you can just install what we call the core components. But if you can get as fancy with it as you want. You can put some governance in your governance so you can governance while you governance. Yes, I did have to make a Pimp My Ride reference. I'm so sorry. It's just that I'm saying governance so many times that I had to. Now, you might be wondering, well, there's a Power Platform Admin Center. Why not just use that? And I'm not saying don't use it. Do use it. My personal metaphor is I look at the Power Platform Admin Center like a baby. It's great. Babies are great. They do some things. I've got a little baby right here. I didn't think I'd be giving this presentation with one hand to gesture with because I have my child in my arms, but such is life as a cat parent. But it doesn't do that much, right? Babies don't do all that much. It does some stuff, but not all the things maybe you'd like. Whereas the COE starter kit is more like a fully formed adult that's going to do walk and talk and think, and just be a lot more powerful than just a baby is. But use them both. There are times that you're absolutely going to need the Power Platform Admin Center. So not saying don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I don't know if that's the correct way to use that phrase, but anyway, keep them both. But that's the comparison that I use between the two of them. And this is a little unfair, but I went to the Power Platform Admin Center and I wanted to get an example of the kind of analytics that it provides for Power Platform. So then I could wow you with the analytics that I get from the COE starter kit. And this is what I got. So that's a little unfair because there was, clearly just a bug at the moment that I did this, but it is what it is. I didn't get any data, any analytics from it. So do with that what you will. Now, for the COE starter kit, I'm not going to show you a live in production version because I just can't show you. I've got PII, personally identifiable information in there, but I do have some screenshots that I wanted to show you of some of the components of the COE starter kit. So one of them is the admin command center. I don't use this one a ton, but this is really useful if it's one way to get to all the apps that are part of the COE starter kit. So that's nice. You can bookmark them. You can scroll through them more easily and see descriptions of them if you can't remember exactly what each one is specifically doing. This is really useful for troubleshooting. So if you're starting to get some errors, so you can see on the left, like sync flow errors, or you can go into the flows specifically that the Center of Excellence has built. That's really useful. You can also go into the environment variables and customize those. We'll talk a little bit later about what the environment variables are and why you might need to do that. So that's what the admin command center is for. It's not the sexiest thing, but it's there. It serves a few purposes. Now we're getting into the cooler stuff though. So this is a model-driven app. This is the Power Platform Admin View dashboard. And I couldn't show you all the cool stuff again because I can't just show you all of this is being recorded, so I can't show you all of my employees' names, but this is just an overview dashboard. So for example, I can see of my makers, who's making apps, how many apps are they making? And I can see, well, the COE admin is certainly, on top here. They're making a ton of apps, which that's my service account. So that makes sense. And who's in second place? Oh my gosh, it's Lindsay Shelton. I'm so honored. then, you can see we don't have a lot of apps being built in our organization. So that gives me some information for adoption purposes. If you look down a little bit below, you can see, though, that I am at the top of the flow makers. I did beat the COE admin account there. You can see how your environments are being used. And this is, again, just one thing in your dashboard. So if you look along the left, you can look at your Power Apps. I don't know why they put apps twice. You can look at your flows, your environments, yada, yada, yada. They do have Power Pages in here. So Power Pages is not a huge focus of the COE starter kit from my knowledge, but it is a part of it. And you can also go into information about your makers specifically in the users section at the bottom. These are some screenshots of some of the apps that I really like. So there's set flow or app permissions. There's one for flow, one for app. And you can go and look at all of your flows by environment. You can look at or apps. You can look at all your flows by owner. And you can look at all your orphan flows, which is really useful because you'll notice there's a launch button next to all of these orphan flows that I had. So what I was able to do after I took this screenshot is go click launch and get myself to this type of screen where I was able to go to flow settings or add new users, add myself as an owner, or go and just clean up the flow, or add a new owner if it was a flow that an organization, a department was still using and the person just didn't properly offboard, which of course happens all the time. So that one's really, really nice. The DLP impact analysis is getting better and better. I didn't really understand this one for a while, but they've done a lot to improve it. So what this is I selected in the first couple of options here. Oh, okay. Bye, Charlie. Oh, I have two hands now. Because as you can tell, I like to talk with my hands. I selected the policy name. So I have 2 DLP policies for my environments. The rest of my environments are just locked down so that no one else can get to them but my admins. And then I just clicked through connectors and scope, and I was able to say, okay, let's say I wanted to add to this policy my production environment. So that's why there's now 2 added to the policy in the screenshot, where there's actually only one really that has this DLP policy, my personal productivity environment. Then when I go to impact analysis, I can go see all of the impacted apps and all of the impacted flows, and I can view what the impact would be. If I made this change, I can email the maker. I can see who the owner is. I can see it when it was last modified. So that's useful, because if it's a flow that was maybe last modified 5 years ago, then okay, well, maybe this is not going to be a big negative impact at all. You can also export this to CSV for easier use and cleanup. And DLP policy, just in brief, what it is it's going through and it's saying, I want my makers to only be able to use these types of connectors. And it's more complicated than that, but it is very core. It's saying I only want these connectors to be able to be used, as its most basic explanation. So this gives me, information before I make that change. What am I going to screw up? Who am I going to impact? The Power BI dashboard has some really cool stuff in it that, again, I can't show you because it has people's names in it, but it has stuff like, okay, so for my cloud flows, what are the connectors that are being used? So I can see SharePoint is by far the most popular connector in my org, which makes sense because we don't really use Dataverse except for the COE. We use SharePoint as databases, and it's fine. It's fine. And you can see, oh, well, we have some people using Planner. So maybe I want to go reach out to those makers and get some of their insight on how they're using Planner, how they like Planner. And I can expand on that and drill down into all of it. On the right, that graphic is I can see a breakdown by department. So I can see, obviously, information technology is crushing it. I'm crushing it. I'm the only one doing it. But I can see Well, there's 16 flows or apps that have been made by cellular tissue and molecular biology and cytometry. Custom protein resources is making stuff. So that, again, for future adoption, tells me maybe which departments I can go target and give, my little spiel to about, hey, here's some more stuff you could automate. Let me help you. Because adoption has really been a bigger struggle for me than the governance has been, but that's a separate topic. Another one from the Power BI dashboard, I just grabbed this one about 5 minutes before I jumped on this camera, is this Cloudflow. So hopefully I covered everything I needed to. This Cloudflow risk assessment. So what it does is it goes through all of your flows, and that blue window that's popped out is just showing, I've highlighted one flow, that 2022 roadmap, untitled row. It's a terrible name. They should have given it a better name. And it's able to give it a score. So I'm able to see this flow is never modified. I could see the flow. It would tell me if the flow contains words like demo, sample, test. That would tell me, maybe, and indicate that this would be good to clean up. This tells me if the flow has not been modified in the last year, which in this case, this has not been modified in the last year. What's the current state? Is the flow suspended, et cetera, et cetera. So and then there's filters all along the side. And there's so many dashboards that they've built. There's so much information that you can get from all of these things. So I know what you're all thinking. What's the catch? Because it's Microsoft. There's always a catch. What's the catch? There is a catch. There's a little bit of a catch, but I work for a nonprofit and we managed to make this work. So I think it's an attainable catch. So what's recommended is to create a COE admin account. We just literally called ours COE admin. And here are the requirements for that account. So some of this may be prohibitive. Some of this may be things you need to work through with your system admins. It must be on an actual license. It cannot be on trial licenses. That will not work. It does have to have an M365 license, but there's not restrictions in place about it needs to be an E3 or E5. It just needs to be an M365 license of some kind. It needs to be mailbox enabled. This one was the hardest one for my organization. For permissions, it needs to either have Power Platform Service Admin, Global Admin, good luck with that, or Dynamics 365 Service Admin, and it cannot be behind PIM or Privileged Identity Management. If you're not sure what that is, you might be familiar. If you have any of these roles, that's where you go into Azure and you say, yeah, I want to activate this admin role for the next 8 hours, and here's my reason why. Reason we can't do that is because there's flows running all the time, 24 hours a day, not constantly, but at 1 a.m. it might run, and then at 5 a.m. it might run, and then at 6 p.m. it might run. So if you're not PIMmed in, those flows are all going to fail. So it needs to be a consistent, permanently assigned administrative role. Whoever is the COE admin or whoever's, kind of taking ownership of this process does need to be Microsoft's recommendation, willing to update the Center of Excellence every 3 months minimum. Monthly updates generally are what come out. I can confirm from experience, because I did try to update my dev environment, that I hadn't updated. Let's say it's on version 4 point something now, and my dev version was at 3 point something. So it had been a while, and I got all sorts of errors and it didn't install correctly. So it really, you really do want to make sure you are doing those updates. But I do have a tip later in the deck for how to help be reminded about doing the updates. And it's not hard. It's not very time consuming. It's just really waiting for it to sync is the most annoying part. And then licenses, everyone's favorite topic. Each account that works with these COE apps needs to either have a Power Apps or Automate per user license, or the app itself needs to have a license. So to be a little more specific about that, if, for example, I wanted users to use one of the apps, which is called an app catalog, I would need to license that particular app with a Power Apps per app license for that one app. But then everyone could use it. Or each user that I want to use it, maybe I only want 15 users to use it. Each of those users would need a Power Apps or Automate per user license. But the benefit there is then they can use all of those premium COE apps. So really, depending on how many admins you need, it's probably best to just do the per user license for your admins. But that's, kind of a decision you need to make for your organization. Now, I'm not telling you this, but the documents say you need both a Power Apps and a Power Automate per user license. You don't actually need both, but I'm not telling you that. Does there a red dot on my forehead from the Microsoft snipers? No? Okay, we're good. You don't. It's fine. I don't have both. So it is suggested that you give the COE its own environment. It's also apparently recommended you give a test environment. And then it's also recommended that, Lindsay, you remember to update the dev environment before you update the main environment, which I did not do this month. Whoopsies. But yeah, that's the basic idea, is especially if you are really, really dependent on your COE, update the dev one first, just to make sure you're not going to have any problems with the update before you then update the main environment. So some of these next slides are going to be real technical in terms of I'm trying to tell you exactly what things to click. So this is going to be posted on the Come Cloud with Us YouTube channel. So I recommend either grab screenshots or come back to this when you are installing yourself, and you can use this as a resource, because I'm not expecting you to memorize every single little detail I'm about to go through. So when you're setting up that environment for the COE or the dev COE, you want to make it a production environment, not a trial or development, etc. You do want to create a database. You don't need to include the sample apps and data, and you don't need to restrict it with a security group. You will probably want to restrict it elsewhere, but that's when you research security roles, you can worry about that. I'm not a security role expert, and I don't want to talk about that. You can have a DLP policy in your COE environment, but if you do, I don't personally, just because I don't have people who are using it. It's just the admins. But if you want to have one, or if you're, management says you need to have a DLP policy on every environment, you do need to make sure you have these connectors allowed, because these are the connectors that all of those apps and flows are going to be using. So I'll leave this up for just a second so you can grab a screenshot if you'd like. And this is going to be a pretty similar next slide, but when you are preparing for your actual setup, once you've got a COE service account, which is what I would absolutely recommend, have a dedicated service account. And once you've got your dedicated environment, you will want to go to make.powerautomate.com and go top right corner, select your COE environment. And then on the left, you might have to expand the menu, go to connections, and then you want to make new connections. And this is an annoying part, but you're going to want to add every single one of these connections. And luckily it's pretty easy. It's just, for approvals, it's search for approvals, click yes, sign in, or yes, approve, whatever it says. Okay, do it again for Dataverse. Okay, do it again for Dataverse Legacy. The only one that's tiny bit tricky is the last one, the HTTP with Azure AD. And this one is so tricky that I actually forgot how to do this and looked this up about 10 minutes before I came on camera. So for this one, when you are adding the HTTP with Azure AD, this is not what the instructions tell you to do. I don't remember how I figured out how to do this. It wants you to connect directly via cloud services, but then it asks for both a base resource URL and an Azure AD resource URI. So like you're thinking it needs an app reg, an app ID, something like that. You just put this URL in twice, https //graph.microsoft.com, and you just put it in twice. I double checked that that's how my COE is set up right now, and it's running just fine. So you just put in that URL twice, even though that's not what it tells you to do, and it works. So why, I don't know, but I'm not in charge. All right, there's one more step before you are ready to actually install it. Honestly, I think the setup steps are probably harder, or at least more annoying, than the installation itself. You want to go to the little baby Power Platform Admin Center with your service account, aka.ms /PPAC. And on the left, you'll go to environments. You'll navigate to your COE environment. So mine in this screenshot is called Lindsay's COE. You'll go to settings, then you'll go to features. You will scroll until you find the screenshot at the bottom here, Power Apps Component Framework for Canvas apps. You need to both turn it on, allow publishing of Canvas apps with code components, and then don't forget this step. Scroll to the bottom and press save. It will not save this change automatically for you. So do make sure to go in and do that. And then you are ready to install the COE. And I should have fixed these animations, but I didn't. So half of them were on the screen already and half of them aren't. But you get the gist. You're ready now. You're going to be ready when you go back and watch this video. Now, I will tell you there's 2 ways to install it. I'm not going to tell you the other way to install it. And the other way to install it is the way I had to install it the very first time I did this. And it was so hard and annoying that I've repressed it and I don't remember how to do it. So you're going to want to not pick the hard way, which is how I had to do it the first time. You're going to want to do what I got to try out in my dev environment, which is the easy way. So that's the way I'm going to show you how to do it, because the beautiful people at the COE starter kit at Microsoft have made a setup wizard, and we bless them for it every day. So I do want to show you the basic steps, and you're going to do this pretty frequently with the COE. You're going to do this at least, once a month or once every 3 months, which is importing solutions. So when you need to import a solution, you'll go to make, and I'll explain on the next slide exactly what you need to import and when. You'll go to make.powerapps.com. You'll have solutions on the left. And so you'll click on that. And then on the top nav, there's just this button here that says import solution. And then there's going to be prompts on the right window pane that will pop up more than likely, and you'll just follow along with those. So that's what you'll be doing in these next few steps. So the initial install steps, first, you have to install the creator kit. And this is a quick thing. All you have to do is go to this website and download it. You can then import the solution while it's still zipped. So you just download it, go to make.powerapps.com, click solutions, click import solution, and select that creator kit zip file. Let it install. It doesn't take very long. Once you've got your green success message, you can move on to the next step, which is not going to be as fast, but it doesn't take, you'll see. You will then want to download the COE starter kit file. And so I've got that link too. And again, these will be in my link tree as well. And you will want to extract these files. So for the first time you do it, just extract it into a folder. It's called COE starter kit or something like that. It doesn't really matter. And then what I would recommend is when you are, because steps 2, 3, and 4 are exactly what you do to update it. When you do your monthly or tri-monthly updates, is you download a new version, extract the files, import the solution. So I like to do extract it into a folder with the name of the month in there as well, like COE June. So you will extract those files and go again to Power App solution. And the import solution, you just are going to import for our purposes the zipped file called Center of Excellence Core Components, yada, 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 yada. It's got a bunch of, versioning and stuff there, but it says Core Components in the name. That's the zipped file that you want to import. There's governance, there's nurturing. Again, you can do all of those, but we're just talking about the most basic installation here. Now, you will want to pause here and stop at this step where it asks you about environment variables. You do want to read through each environment variable it asks you about. Now, notice that several of them you can kind of see in the screenshot say in all caps, leave empty on import. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to leave those empty on import. You're not going to put anything there. So that's great. That's one of those things where that admin command center, when I mentioned those environment variables and going back to them, if you end up needing it, that's where you would go to later configure those. This is another one of those screens that I don't expect you to memorize, but maybe just screenshot or come back to later. This is subject to change because there are new releases every month, and I did not go through a full new install. But basically, a lot of it's just putting in URLs. So the required environment variables, the Power App Maker environment variable is just the URL for Power Apps. The Power App environment variable is just how you get to the environments, I guess, in Power Automate. And that URL actually might be out of date now that I look at it because it says flow, but check on that. Power App Player environment variable, apps.powerapps.com. Tenant ID. Now, this one I can't give you. You've got to get this. You've got to go to portal.azure.com. If you don't have access to this, you might need to ask your system admin or whoever that is for this. You need your tenant ID, which is going to just be on the first screen when you go to Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure AD, just to confuse us all because Microsoft loves to rename. The graph URL environment variable is just the graph URL. And then individual admin, you just put an individual admin's email in there. It could just be a service account. That's fine. Then it's time to wait because importing it, I swear, I have bad memory. It used to take 15 minutes, I thought. Like my original presentation said, wait 15 minutes. It takes me more like an hour now to import these solutions. And I don't know if it's just because they've added so many features, but just make sure you've got a good solid internet connection and then, go find a cat or a dog or a child or a book and, or I guess do other parts of your job, whatever. I'm not your boss. I'm not going to tell. I recommend going to find a cat. That's my personal preference. You just got to wait. You're just going to have a gray bar that says currently importing solution, and you'll know it's done. You won't get a pop-up or anything when it turns into a green success bar, but more than likely it'll be a yellow bar saying that it's successfully imported with warnings. And then I do ignore the warnings because I just it works with me ignoring the warnings, and so I just continue to ignore the warnings. So maybe is that the best advice? No, maybe you want to look into the warnings, but so far it's worked for me just fine to ignore the warnings. Now, once it is installed, you'll want to go into that solutions again, but instead of going into import solution, you'll want to scroll, because now you'll see, and a solution, by the way, is just it's a type of container in Power Platform. Research solutions, look into them. If you are not using solutions, they are very, very, very useful. I wasn't using them for quite some time, but I really like using them now. But anyway, so you're going through that solution and you are going to look for COE Setup Wizard. It might not say preview anymore, probably not. And you want the one that says model driven app. So like the one I have highlighted there. And it's going to open your new best friend, which is the Setup Wizard. And the Setup Wizard is doing the thing that you would before. I believe the process was this huge list of things that are in that solution, you would be going through and you'd open it up flow by flow and consulting with a Microsoft page. It's saying, yes, turn on this flow. Okay, I did that. Now open up this flow and turn it on. I did that. No, and you would do that 50 times or something ridiculous. So this is going to make your life so much easier and so much faster. Life became better the day this arrived. So you can see from this first screen, it wants you to confirm the prerequisites. It tells you to verify manually. Do you have the proper admin account access? You will notice it asks you, do you have Power Apps per user and Power Automate per user license? And I failed one of these, but guess what? It still let me install it. And it checks that you have a Microsoft 365 license and that it's email enabled. So those things I already talked about. It's just confirming, do you have those things in your service account? And then I'm just going to go through what the setup wizard shows you just so it's not a mystery when you first see it. And again, it might have changed a little bit. And if it did, I apologize. It talks about configuring communication methods. You want an admin group for the first persona that you configure, a maker group for the second persona, and some kind of all company group for the third persona that would allow you to share out an app to all users in your company if your licensing allows you to do so. Really, the only one of these that I actively use is the admin persona, because we then set up, we have like a PP admin group that I set up in here so that we're the ones getting email notifications if a sync flow doesn't work, for example. The inventory data source, I would assume the data export is no longer coming soon. I would assume it's there by now. We just use cloud flows, but basically you can, there's some sort of data export option as well to look into and research. I use cloud flows and it works just fine. So that was an easy one. Next, we're already over halfway through, but then it runs the setup flows and it's just 3 flows, but yeah, you're going to do some more waiting on this. So again, go find a cat, a child, a dog, a book, Vanderpump Rules, you know, whatever floats your boat, or do your job. It's up to you. That's going to take a little bit to run those setup flows, and you can refresh. There's a little refresh button there to give you the status of when they're done. And when they are all done, we're getting really close here. There's inventory flows. So this is an example of what I said. You used to have to go open these all manually and go click turn on and then close it and go click turn on and close it. This you just need to toggle on for these, 8 or so flows, and then click next. And these just are gathering basically the information about what is in your environment. So you're just turning them all on. Easy peasy. This, I did not do anything with share apps personally, but this allows you to share apps with the other Power Platform admins. Personally, it's just, I'm the only Power Platform admin who actually does anything in the COE, so I didn't need to share these out with anyone, but this is the screen that would allow you to do that. And then this gives you instructions for publishing the Power BI dashboard. This is a little bit complicated, but there are videos, especially Manuela Pilcher is one of the people, or at least she was, I don't know if she still is, on the COE team with Microsoft. And I relied a lot on her video when I was first learning how to do all of this. So there's video walkthroughs and they go through how to use the dashboards. And you do need Power BI desktop to get it set up, but then you can access once you set up a scheduled refresh, you can access it on the web. So you don't have to keep doing that. And Power BI desktop is, I believe, just a Windows program. So that could be a drawback for some people, but if you have a Windows VM or just someone, or just get off your Mac, because I don't really like Macs, but why did I say that? I might have just alienated half the audience. Oh my gosh. Anyway, moving on, the setup wizard, there are more features. I'm not going to get into all these features because I don't use all these features, but if you look and see, you can read about all of these different features that you could set up through this wizard, through the more features. And then you install the COE! So see, the actual setup wizard makes it so easy. It's really just the prerequisites and the steps that you do ahead of time. They're kind of more of a pain in the butt, but hopefully this is helping you so that you will be prepared and can knock it out pretty quickly and pretty easily. Now, hot tip, I did say that they recommend updating the COE at minimum every 3 months. I do try to do it every 1 month. Watch this GitHub repo, which I also do have linked in my link tree. And if you watch it, you will get monthly alerts when the new release comes. And so I just get an email, like in March, I got an email, March 1st or 2nd saying, hey, here's the new download. All you do then is you just download the zip file again, extract it, and import the core file, the core component zipped file, wait a million years, and then you're upgraded. And that's all you need to do. And again, it's better to do a dev one first, test out a couple things, make sure it looks right, and then a prod one, but it's not required. So my organization's biggest takeaways a year later, about a year later, I don't remember exactly when I first installed this. Once the governance is set up right, especially if the adoption is not huge, which, at the beginning it might not be, there's not much else that you need to do with it on a regular basis other than, go check your dashboards, get some intel on what's going on, and of course make those monthly or tri-monthly updates. But there's so much more now that you can do. And you've seen those things that can help. I mentioned some of the things that can help give you tips about how to help increase adoption. So I've learned adoption can be a very a much slower process than I'd hoped, but it can be a really rewarding process. So the other thing I'd recommend is just make sure that you're really putting yourself out there. That you have a point person out there saying, I'm here if you want to make some flows or make some apps. I'm here to help you. I probably work with at least one person every week or two, and the experience is always really positive. They're always really happy with the results, and most of them go on to make their own flows or apps, and then they tell me about it, and they're really excited. They're like, oh my gosh, I made a new one. And I get really excited about that, which is, like I said, it's really rewarding when you do see that, even though it's not maybe taken off in our organization the way I would love it to, because we are a little bit product agnostic in our organization too. People use Slack, people use Zoom. It's just, it hurts my head, but that's a separate topic. Yeah, so that's what I've got. So I appreciate your time, and I'm here if you have questions or comments. Here's the link to my link tree, and that QR code will also take you there.
Awesome. I just got to say, your energy level is fantastic. Lindsay, great job. Excellent. Thank you so much for this. I know I feel seen in a couple of sections throughout. I think I don't think anybody's alone. I mean, a lot of folks, a lot of organizations are going through the same thing, right?
Sure.
So, but yeah, I'm surprised if you didn't cross paths in 2022 at MPPC. So I was there hiding out too, somewhere in the scenes. Maybe
I found a little group of misfits that year, and we still are in touch and text all the time. And so I was probably with my little group of misfits that year. But
oh, this is awesome. Just going to see if we have any questions. Now would be the time. We've got a lot of folks tuning in, so thank you all tonight for tuning in, watching, learning with us. It's hard to walk away from this energy level. I don't want to run laps around my desk right now.
I don't know where it came from. I think I just channeled my years as a teacher, where I would wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning and still have to go entertain a bunch of 12-year-olds. Just pull it from some deep reserves, some reservoirs within me. Now I'm gonna, after this, just go completely veg out on my couch, drooling, watching Vanderpump Rules, probably. So.
My goodness. Well, I don't see questions coming in, but I can't let a session go without at least asking one question. So I'm curious about something. This is all awesome information. I'm curious about Most folks know, I work at a law firm, and it's not a law firm thing. It's an every organization thing. Feedback, right? People use something, they like it, they kind of want to track and want to like understand. And I know like part of this COE has got, all the monitoring, all the auditing, whatever else, but how can folks like handle feedback for app builders or other folks?
There is, I believe, in the nurture component, if you install that, there are some surveys that are built into that you can survey your makers. Don't
Awesome.
don't like sue me if I am wrong about that, but I'm going to say I'm 72% sure about
that. I would say that's still pretty high. So
yeah. No, I feel like I think it might have said it on the it might have said surveys on the slide, but which is why I'm 72% sure. Other than that, I would be completely lost and tell you, tweet me and I'll get back to you on that.
Right. So then, I have one other question. Oh, go ahead. You go.
Yeah. So I know we talked about flows in apps. So, and you said, some of the flows don't get updated. What is a good way, or I guess best practice, to go back and make sure flows are getting updated? There's no issues with those.
Well, that's really up to your governance philosophy. For me, the adoption is not high enough that I'm that concerned with old flows that aren't getting updated. So for me, it's more of a, okay, that's interesting versus something that I want to take action about. But the COE Starter Kit provides you tools to go in and take action and suspend the flow or quarantine the flow, or, if that is a concern for your organization for whatever reason. So it's just not for me. I'm just happy if anyone's built a flow at all, So I'm not trying to shut people down at my point.
Okay. And part of the governance, I guess, there's no audit for the flows or apps. So as you said, it's fairly small, right? But I guess the bigger organizations, they probably would be doing auditing or whatnot. So
yeah, and I would think that's where you'd want to add in that governance core or the governance component, because is it governance? I think it was governance. Yeah. The governance component, which is going to just have just a lot more features. And the other really cool thing is this is an active product. They're actively adding new features every CO. So if you go to the GitHub page, you can and you look at the releases, you can see they've got a list of features that they release every month. So there's new features coming all the time. So if it's not there now, it's probably a feature you could request, or it's maybe something that's already in the pipeline.
Okay. And this might be a very stupid question, but I know with the cloud, there's always talk about backup, right? And we talked about exporting data and all that stuff. So what are the best practices that you follow for the COE and, I guess Power Platform in general?
I trust the cloud. I'm not I don't back my thing. So what I do with my personal flows and things that are like business critical that I've spent a lot of really time developing is I just make sure to document them. So I actually have like a Confluence page where I go through and I say, this is exactly how this flow is built and this is how it runs. And so that's as far as I go to back things up, really, for me is just if something happened and this got deleted tomorrow, I could rebuild it from that documentation.
That's fair enough. That's exactly what I wanted to know, right?
Yeah.
Like I know Azure is much more granular. Because there are more data and whatnot, so you have to kind of back it up. But I guess this, yeah, to your point, this could be fairly quick to build up. Okay.
And I'm also not a sysadmin, so I'm sure there's things I'm not thinking of, and that I'm just like, la la la, the cloud is great, everything's perfect. And if one of my coworkers heard me right now, they would be ripping out their hair.
Sure. I still don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm gonna ask one more. Okay. So I have a little bit of familiarity with Power Platform landing zones. So can those be used in combination with the COE?
I will tell you, I do not have familiarity with landing zones, so I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, we should talk next week then.
I would love to. Yeah. You know what's so hard about being at the organization of my side is and being the only person who is out there pushing for Power Platform adoption is we don't have the premium licensing necessarily that I mean I have a premium license, but we don't have the licensing for managed environments. We don't have the licensing for all of these different features that I know some things about, but I don't know enough about. And so there's always so many more things that I'm wanting to learn about the Power Platform that are just hard to learn when you don't have the resources or the use cases for them,
Yeah. Yep. No, I think you hit the nail on the head because there is a licensing aspect. It is, it is required premium. Managed environments is a big part of that. But yeah, I was just thinking back to, some of the stuff you had presented where, if we're talking about different environments, maybe a dev test prod type of approach.
This is homemade ALN. This is I'm exporting the solution and importing the solution into each environment manually because I don't have the licensing to do anything different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We're homegrowing it.
That's awesome.
And then from a use case standpoint, I know you're working at the nonprofit. Are the uses going to be different based on the industry or vertical? And how different are those going to be?
That's a great question. I would love to get more scientists interested in, because really, if anything has an API, we can make something happen with a custom connector in Power Automate. But, there's just not the awareness there necessarily. And I don't know if they're even know about it. I've tried to have Power Automate 101 sessions, 101 sessions. Right now, what we're using it a lot for is more, I have some administrative assistants using it for sending out survey results and things like that, just some really basic forms. And I just helped Custom Protein Resources build a nice workflow for if something comes in from a form, we want to turn this into a project plan. We want to build something in Planner. And then if it gets approved, then we want to move it over into a different bucket and we want to build a different, populate a different word template and doing all of that. So it's more administrative, but I would love to get into, hey, pull a science fact of the day and post it in Teams and, from an API or something like that.
And from a learning aspect, you kind of talk about, the basic of Power Platforms and stuff. The folks who want to get started with Power Platform and don't know how to start, kind of talk about your journey and, what advice would you give?
My favorite first flow is always build a Microsoft form and then email yourself the results of that Microsoft form. that's always the first flow I have people build. But as for getting started, there are so many great people in the community, whether they be MVPs or just people who are really passionate about it. Shane Young is an amazing resource. Matt Devaney is an amazing resource for just beginning. And I know Shane Young, I think, has he's kind of been stepping back and doing a 101 sort of let's get you started with Power Apps. And then my brain is blanking, of course, and I'm going to be so ashamed of all the people I'm not mentioning. But what I would recommend is get onto Twitter, X. I refuse to call it this stupid name. But get onto Twitter and the sharing is caring hashtag and MVP buzz hashtag, or and use those along with your questions. I just went in there the other day with those two hashtags and said, hey, I need help with Viva Engage. I don't know anything about Viva Engage. And I had 3 or 4 different people helping me. I had people DMing me saying, did you get the help you needed? Do you have everything you needed? And the community is really the best resource that I could give anyone.
And I can personally vouch for that as well. Yep. Community is amazing. Awesome. Chris, any questions from you?
I I think I'm out. I mean, I could sit here all night and ask all kind of questions, but that's what next week's for. So,
Well,
we'll take.
the part of the reason I have my link tree on there is I've got my Twitter, I've got my blog, I've got my LinkedIn. So feel free for anyone out there to reach out and connect with me with questions or comments, or if you just also like Bravo television and cats, just reach out and connect with me. I love it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, with that, I will say thank you again for this awesome session. Thank you for the details, for the inspiration, for the knowledge share. So it's what makes this
Thank you
awesome
for having
community.
me.
You're very welcome. Thank you to our viewers. Hope you enjoyed the session, and we'll see you again next month. Take care, everybody. Have a great day, night, morning. Bye now.